Microsoft Teams and how to utilize Teams. I know with everything that's happened and the kind of the shift to the remote workforce and the need for collaboration, most companies are using Teams already. And if they weren't using them before, kind of we ran into this the COVID-19 situation, they've definitely started using them now. But it's kind of to what extent and what is Teams, and then what are just some little tips and tricks and some little things beyond just the basics that everybody looks at. So, to start out, kind of talk about a little bit what is Microsoft Teams. I'm not going to spend a ton of time on the basic features that we know, the things like the chat tools and the video messaging, what we're using now. I'll talk a little bit about that, but I'm going to get into some of the other features, that things, those next layers of tips that people have. At its core, Microsoft Teams is a communication tool. Again, people sometimes look at it as just a chat tool or just a video conferencing tool, but there is a lot more to it. The functionality is, it's almost endless. And the big key is also the integration and how Teams is now really making big advances into the integration as far as the third-party tools and the other apps and things. I'm going to talk a little bit about some of that later. But I think the simplest form, it's a service allows users, basically it's a hub. It's an ability for them to have chats and channels and have video meetings and to store data and to be able to communicate better. So, really simple in that sense as far as what the functionality is, but it can get very deep and detailed as far as like how to use it. So just a little quick thing by the numbers. So, as of April 2020, there's 80 million daily Teams users right now. Of course, a lot of that growth has happened because of the COVID situation and the shift to the remote workforce. That's a shift that we don't see necessarily going back to the normal that we knew before. It might not remain fully remote, but a lot of businesses that are non-client facing are going to probably remain in a remote scenario for a while, and then probably have some sort of hybrid solution going forward. You look at all the big tech giants, Microsoft themselves, Amazon, etc. They've all come out, and Google, they've all come out and said we're going to stay in a remote workforce until the end of 2020, and make decisions from there. So the need for tools like Teams and some of the other comparable tools is only going to grow, and then with that, the tools that come as add-ons are going to grow, and the things we can do with these tools is going to grow. So interesting. This on March 31st of this year, Microsoft had their record date with Teams. There was 2.7 billion meeting minutes just that day alone. It's quite impressive when you think about that. So as I talked about, it's kind of, Microsoft Teams is your hub for teamwork. It's your communication tools through chat, meetings, calls, the ability to collaborate deeply through, Office 365, but it's actually now Microsoft 365 apps. The ability to customize and integrate, as well as also having that security. And I'll touch on that a little bit as well. Having all these tools and having the accessibility is wonderful, but if you don't have the security that goes with it, it's not going to be advantageous for you. So I'm assuming, and also I'm assuming that most people on this group that are, clients of solūt have Teams set up to some extent. If not, we can definitely have conversations done, after this meeting with your CX representative about how to, implement Teams in your organization. But I'm going to kind of, for the purpose of this, presentation, assume that people have at least, have Teams implemented or have some familiarity with Teams in that sense. So one of the main things that Teams start out with, and probably the one that's used the most often, is that ability to communicate through chat. Teams, as a goal, is basically looking to almost eliminate internal emails and work emails, by the end of next year, to the point where externally you're probably still going to need to have those email flow, but internally there should be nothing that you need to do within email that you can't do within Teams, as far as sending messages, the tracking, the saving of them, the storage, all that aspect. It's quite impressive. But it's not just the chat features. It's also looking at, the video chats and all those things, the group conversations that we're having, one-on-one chats, being able to share information. The brick and mortar concept of geography within Office doesn't exist when you're dealing with Teams. And then also just to add a little bit more fun to it, you can humanize it a little bit with GIFs and stickers and emojis and things along those lines. Again, the big key on this is the collaboration and also the integration, being able to access conversations, files, tools, leveraging third-party apps and different applications in there to use Teams to pull in more data, to be able to analyze that data, to be able to share quicker, share easier, share multiple things. I think that's one of the key features for Teams that we want to keep looking at. And then quickly, just touching on the security side again, as we've talked about over the webinars the last few weeks, with everything that happened with COVID-19, the shift to trying to get to remote workforce, a lot of times it's get there, get it done, and we'll worry about security after, which is fine. Well, Microsoft is taking care of that, and whether it's the security side, whether it's compliance, whatever it might be, everything within a Teams kind of encapsulation and bubble, it has pretty high level of security to make you feel safe, and then that goes for the whole Microsoft and Office 365 suite as well. So again, just as the quick overview, this is the Teams layout. This is what it looks like when you open it up. Most people are probably familiar with this. You have your tabs at the top, which is your quick access. We'll talk a little bit more tabs later on. The ability to add in applications into your tab section, the ability to add in, some connectors and different things. That's kind of your quick go-to. What do I want to be able to grab and get to quickly? So you can see there's a conversation history, there's your files, there's notes, and then you can customize that kind of almost any way you want. The teams, on the left here, you can see these are the different teams and groups that are set up. Most likely you either have a Teams administrator or, you have somebody that's taking care of that for you to set it up. One of the big things with Teams is that anytime you're setting up channels or team groups, you're also setting up SharePoint sites that match up with the name of that. You're setting up all these different things. So you want to make sure that, you don't just have access for everybody and anybody to start, creating all these different channels and teams. Otherwise, you can get sprawl really fast, and it can be something where it starts to become a bit of a mess and hard to manage and track. So definitely an area that you want to make sure you have somebody, or a group of people that are kind of the administrators of your company's Teams environment. And then the channels, that's kind of the area where everything flows through. We'll talk a little bit more about the differences between kind of the teams and channels in a bit. Like I said, channels, Teams as a whole, Microsoft Teams is made up of channels. Each covers a different topic. So you might have it, you can see here on the picture, you have presentation, marketing, design, you have different groups. Only your favorite channels will show up on the left. So, if there's channels that are set up the organization that you're not involved with very often, you can, hide those or keep those kind of in view. And they'll only pop up when something new comes to you. That's a notification. That's a nice thing to have. Otherwise, you might end up with, again, the sprawl where you have this huge long list of all these different channels that you're a part of, but you're necessarily always involved in those conversations. So you can kind of pop in and pop out as new information pops up for you. One of the nice things, and I think this is a feature that not everybody knows about, and it's good because I know for myself, whenever I'm in, one of my channels and I'm in a chat with it, whether it's a group chat or even a one-on-one chat, I always kind of think to myself, oh, I'm going to want to reference that back later, and I don't want to have to go into that chat or that channel and scroll and try to find that message. So, liking messages will also bump them up a little bit for you, but the big one is the save messages, and it's, clicking on those three dots and clicking save messages. Those will all kind of go into a separate folder, and it's a searchable thing where you can search your saved messages and you can find the threads and the parts of the threads that are really important to you. If somebody puts, some information regarding a code or a price and you want to be able to go back to that, or a certain kind of conversation. Documents, you don't have to necessarily save, click on the save link because they're going to be actually saved in the file section. Anything that anybody uploads into a conversation automatically gets put into that files tab at the top. So those are, not anything you have to worry about, but it's just really nice to be able to save those messages, and then you can unsave them after you've got it. But I know there's been times when I've been trying to find a message that somebody sent to me, and I know it was from 3 weeks ago, and depending on the length and depth of the conversations that you have through, Teams, it might be scrolling for pages and pages trying to find that. So you can save it, go back to it, and easily, quickly reference it later. So mentions is a nice feature because, whether you want to track your own mentions or whether you want to, be able to try to find and make sure somebody else gets a notification about this. The @ mentioning, which is basically putting the @ symbol before their name, and generally within an organization, as soon as you type the @ in the first couple letters of their name, should pop up and you can put in somebody's name. So it kind of highlights for them, because in everybody's activity feed, which is on the top left here, just under your icon, your picture icon, profile icon, in your activity feed, anytime somebody mentions you, it's going to be highlighted and it's going to be at the top there. So when you, as your organizations utilize Teams more, and there's more and more channels and more one-on-one communications, using the @mentions of somebody's name is a great way to kind of get their attention a little bit more. Especially if there's multiple people talking in a thread and you want to mention something that's specifically for one person, or you want to ensure that one person replies back to you. And that everybody in the group isn't wondering, were they talking to me? Was it, by putting in that @mention, it highlights their name. It's also great for something like solūt. We do a thing where we do shout outs whenever somebody has something that's really good with as far as work, or, has had a good success or done something great for one of our clients. We have an actual channel that's called shout outs, and you put the person's name in with the @mention, and, it just highlights them and it gives them a little bit more notoriety in that sense. But it's a really quick, easy way to get in the habit of putting in those @mentions and really specifically targeting the person that you want the message for. And then also, again, being able to see when you've been mentioned, when somebody wants to get your attention, it shows up a little bit more of a higher profile. Another really cool thing, especially when you have group messages in your chat feature. Now, not in the channels necessarily, but in your chat feature. But I know often, I have a lot of one-on-ones, but I also have one where all of a sudden we're looping 2 or 3 people in. And then you want to be able to identify that one easier. You can actually rename them. So if I had a chat set up with, myself and Anjani and a couple of people from, let's say, our CX team, and Chris and Alpesh, I could label that chat with those people. So instead of trying to find that individual chat of those people in my list of chats, I can name it, and then it's easier for me to search and find. So this is a great little tip that when I figured it out, I went through and kind of started renaming all my chats, and it really changed how I was able to search through my chats to find people and to find groups of chats. Because a lot of times within organizations, you'll have teams. So like HR, be example. If you have a chat thread that's not part of the main channel, but just an individual thread, but you have the 4 HR people in your organization, or the 3 people are chatting through on there, you can rename that one HR. And then anytime you want to search or bring that up, you just have to put in HR instead of trying to find the thread with all of those people. It's a really nice little thing to help speed up your searching and your organizing of your different threads. So again, kind of talked a little bit at the beginning when I did the profile of tabs. Tabs is kind of your go-through. It's everything you have. It's where you will access things quickly. It allows you to integrate tools, services that you love right into your chat or your channel. It's kind of your favorites bar almost in that sense. You automatically get a couple of tabs, files that are uploaded over in the files tab, notes go in the notes tab, but you can really customize this as much as you want with a lot of different Microsoft applications as well as third-party application integrations. It's one of those things where if it's something that you find you're clicking on and trying to find to integrate a lot, add it to your tabs, and then it's right there, and you're not trying to dig around. Every time you need to have that kind of the extra tool, or you need to use that tool, or you want to access that app within that channel. So talk a little bit about some of the new features in Teams. Like Teams is evolving, and as things are happening pretty quickly with COVID-19 situation and the really fast, rapid shift in the remote workforce, Teams has been really pushing heavily to integrate a lot of new features. And just looking on the Microsoft site over the weekend, there's a bunch of new stuff that's coming down the pipeline in the next few weeks to a couple months within Teams that are really, really cool. But I'll just kind of quickly touch on some of the ones that are live in action. As I mentioned at the very beginning, it now has a 3x3 grid video meetings instead of the 4x4. That one just came in last week. There's the raise your hand feature. So if you're in an actual live conversation meeting, not a webinar like we're doing now, but a live conversation meeting with multiple staff members, there's the ability to click a little button to raise your hand. And it kind of saves the idea of who needs to talk next or who has something to say. And it just helps to have the flow of the meetings with, without ever having everybody having their mics unmuted and multiple people talking at the same time. Some advances and changes in the ability to background, to blur your images, the different background effects, customizations in that sense, which is just nice. If your home work environment isn't that great, as far as the aesthetics and how it looks appealing, you can pick a nice, predefined Microsoft background image, or you can create a custom one. They've also integrated now for iOS the ability to have black background blur as people are starting to phase and shift back into going out into the workforce in different areas. If you're sitting in a coffee shop on your phone on a Teams meeting, you can blur your background, so it just makes it a little bit more professional in that size. That wasn't available for iOS previously. It has been available for desktop and home PC for a long time, which is a nice feature to kind of just take away those distractions in the background. If more people use that, we wouldn't have all those video clips of people, people having webinars and are having video conferences, and a husband or wife walks by in the background of their underwear, or the kid comes running into the room. So the blurred background would help a little bit with that. That's a nice feature to have. Live captions for iOS. So I'll talk a little bit about live captions in a bit, but the ability, and I could do it with this meeting, I won't, but you can set it up for live captioning. So it'll take my voice as I'm talking, and it'll close caption it at the bottom. It's great for people that are trying to follow along with multiple people threads, or for after the fact when you want to review a recorded meeting. The live caption also allows you to search specific things and be able to find those because it'll time tag those. Oh. So video meetings is one of the things that people use a lot, and as far as the Teams ability, the chat and the video is probably the two biggest primary things that people use. Teams meetings are great because you can schedule them, of course, through your Teams calendar, which integrates with your Outlook calendar, and again, integration being the key thing, or you can literally start them on demand anytime. I can be in the middle of a chat with someone, and with one button click, I can video message them right away. Same thing, even if you have a group of 3 or 4 people chatting away, and it's kind of, the chat's not getting where you need, one button click, and it'll set up a Teams meeting call, and you can jump on your phone or on your device and have that video meeting to maybe kind of get things to that next level. So it's really nice to be able to have both those options. Again, the background blur, custom backgrounds. I think muting your mic is a big one that people need to be aware of. I make that joke, and a lot of times now with larger groups like this, it's muted by default, but not muting your mic is kind of the reply all of 2020. It's become kind of that etiquette faux pas in that sense, making sure that people know aren't talking when in the background. And later on, I'm going to talk about kind of some of the 5 biggest mistakes or worries you can make while using Teams. Again, recorded meetings with transcription, savable to the cloud, savable to wherever you want, really. And then the transcription is also searchable, which is a really, really cool feature. Fully integrated now, mobile, desktop, web browser, doesn't matter. You can jump, I can be on my desktop having a meeting and need to head out, and I can switch over and jump right onto my phone, and it just integrates. It's so seamless, it's nice. And again, the ability to start meetings instantly with a single click is awesome. The other thing that's really cool within meetings is the ability to kind of have the whiteboarding, screen sharing, meeting notes. As you're in a meeting and everybody's talking and conversing through a video meeting, you can be writing notes, which will be saved into that channel or into that meeting history. You can bring up a whiteboard screen for just some brainstorming, or if somebody wants to diagram something out. So you have all these tools. There's nothing really where you kind of going, oh, we can't do this because we're on video. We can't do this on a video meeting, but we could do it live. We're at the point now where pretty much anything you could do in a live meeting, as far as presentation, other than physically handing somebody a pamphlet or something, it can be done in a Teams meeting. So it's really, really made some huge strides in the last little while, and it's only going to continue to get better. The nice thing is meeting history. So when you have meetings and there's chat and communication as well as through the video, and if they're being recorded, it'll be saved in that channel in a meeting history. So if somebody wasn't able to make that meeting as part of a team group, they were sick that day or they're out, they can go back into that channel. They can see all the chat part of the history, as well as the recordings can also be put there, so they can get caught right back up immediately. And in that sense, it's nice. Back in the day, and again, the live in-person meetings, if you were sick and you were away that day and you missed the meeting, you were going to talk to one of your coworkers and kind of get the quick close notes of, hey, what did I miss? What's going on? Usually a lot of information missed on that. And now with Teams and the video meetings, all the communication through the chat feature is stored as a history, as well as if you're recording the meeting, it's stored in there as well. The person can catch back up and get all the information, which is quite nice. Kind of talked about the idea of finding the meeting. One of the things I love is sometimes I'm busy, I'm multitasking, I'm doing a bunch of things, and I forget that I have a meeting scheduled. And it's awesome that it will pop up and kind of go, hey, and just started the meeting. And then oh yeah, and you can just one button click, jump right in. It's when you're within the Teams functionality, it has that ability to remind you. It's nice. You're not just reliant on your calendar. it's pretty, and again, it's a one button click. You want to make it as simple as possible to kind of jump in and get part of things. Searching meetings, the same thing. If you have multiple meetings, you can search through when they are. It's quite a nice feature. With meetings and with everything else you're doing, the status update is a really important thing for people to be aware of. I know for the longest time I didn't pay attention to my status updates, and people would think I was busy when I wasn't, or I was available when I was really busy. So this is a really nice feature to kind of get aware of and what the options are, and to start using it. Now, when you have a meeting that's in your Teams calendar and it's a planned meeting, you will automatically get set to busy. That's a nice thing. Like, for example, I have this webinar in my calendar, and my status right now on my team shows me as busy. But it's one of those things where if you're busy working on a project, you might want to change your status from available to do not disturb, or if you are stepping away from your desk, even in a work from home environment or wherever, you might put it in to be right back, or you can even put it to appear away if you're in the middle of, if somebody jumps on a call with you and your status, you can change whatever you need to do depending on where your level's at. It's a nice feature to kind of get in the habit of making sure you keep your status up to date. Before you could just walk around the office and go, oh, yeah, there's Steve, there's Sally, they're at their desk, I'm going to go talk to them. When we're in a remote environment, you can't necessarily see if someone's at their computer working. So the status updates are nice to be able to kind of show your availability to your office from a remote environment. This is one of my favorite ones, keyboard shortcuts. I'm not going to go through and talk about them all. You can go and Google keyboard shortcuts. I'll probably throw a link into the chat feature of this message right after the webinar's over. You can grab that. But keyboard shortcuts are great. You're multitasking. You're trying to do a couple of different things, and just to be able to quickly, so bring it up as control period to bring up the shortcuts within it as well. But you want to zoom in, you want to mute your mic, and you don't want to reach for your mouse, and you're there. It's just the ability to have those kind of quick taps to be able to move between different things. So when you have 2 or 3 different channels open and a chat open and something else, you can, by just keyboard shortcutting, you can move back and forth. It's a great example is you have something on full screen, and you don't want to have to minimize and then go through and try to find what you're using. You can, move from the full screen to control 1, and it'll open up your activities, or control 3 will open up your actual Teams messaging. So the keyboard shortcuts are nice, but even better than keyboard shortcuts, I find, is the slash commands. Slash commands are really quick and easy way at the top in your messaging bar to change statuses, to search things, to find people. Quick thing to bring up, if you just type the \keys, it will bring up this list. It'll show you what all of your keys are and that are available, are your slash commands. I think it's a really, really neat feature to have. It's pretty quick, as far as your searches. If you want to quickly set your status to do not disturb, a couple keystrokes rather than kind of trying to find where it is and drag and drop. If you want to make a quick call, you can /call @ and their name with the mentions, and it'll create a Teams call right away. It's the ability to use a command line to quickly get things that you want done, rather than trying to figure out where do I click through all the GUI interfaces in that sense. So, again, the \unread is a great one just to see what are your unread activity. It's a neat little feature that the more you play around with it, the more you'll get to know those features and those shortcuts and the slash commands, and you'll start using them more and more to the point where you won't even remember sometimes where you have to click around to get something, because you'll be so used to just using the slash commands. So chatted a little bit earlier about kind of the idea of Microsoft Teams mistakes to avoid, and not all of these are just Teams specific, but they're generally mistakes that can either be career limiting or just in general embarrassing, or things that you don't want to deal with. So one of the biggest ones is making unwanted changes to shared documents. So you have documents that are shared within Teams. That allows everybody to basically be in collaborating, working on a document at one time. And it also is something that gets saved real time into the cloud. It's not a situation where, the old days where you had to go, click on the little, floppy disk icon, save as, local. You can do that. And that's one of the recommendations if you want to work on a document separately. But you want to make sure that if the marketing team is working on a document and you go in there and start making changes because you wanted to make a copy for a different client, and you don't all of a sudden overwrite all of their work. So it's one of the things that, I've made this mistake a couple times myself, and it's a mistake you make once or twice, and then you generally don't make again, because it's not great for the other people involved that have maybe worked on a document that you change. But you really want to be aware of, if you're working on live documents and you want to make some big changes, or you want to do something different to save a copy and kind of pull that out there. It's one of those things where you don't want to have to deal with the coworker who's annoyed because you've either overwritten or messed up hours of work that they've done. It's a wonderful feature to be able to have people jointly in a document and working it at the same time, or to have those what we call live documents. It's great, rather than having the 8 copies emailed around and stored on a file server, and you don't know what version is the most current live version. This eliminates all those problems, but it does open up a new problem of, because it is a live document, it can be overwritten in that sense. Now, there's lots of ways you can go back, and you can go back through version histories, etc. I'm not going to get too deep into that, but it's just one of those that be aware of what you're doing within those shared documents. So this is the one that's kind of the most common one that's out there. We see a lot of is, forgetting that you have the camera on. You're sitting in a webinar and you have your camera on, or you're sitting in a meetings more specifically and you have a camera on, and you're engaged at the beginning of the meeting. It's your turn to talk, and you're going, it's fine. And then you're not talking for a while, and you're listening to other people, and you forget you have the camera on, and you don't know maybe what's going on necessarily behind you if you haven't blurred your screen, and all of a sudden, you start playing with your hair or whatever you might do, and you just kind of forget that, that you have your camera on. This happens so often, and you don't want to end up on YouTube or somebody's, greatest team's mistake hit video by them doing something a little bit weird. So just make sure you remember to always have your camera on. If you need to do something, shut your camera off quickly, and then turn your camera back on, specifically when it's your time to speak. It's just kind of a one to protect yourself and make sure. It's very easy to forget you have that camera on when you're in a long presentation or meeting with a lot of people, and you just kind of, you forget, right? Also, just your facial expression. Somebody says something and you kind of make the eye roll and oh, geez, like that's, if your camera's on, they can see you do that. So, you almost need to treat it like, if your camera's on, treat it like you're in a live meeting looking right at that person. How would you react? What would you do? Yeah, the other big one, not muting your mic or forgetting to unmute when you're speaking. I think a lot of people have done that where, and I know that's happened to me, where you think you're talking, you think you're speaking, you think everybody can hear you, but you can't. And especially when you're in the video message and everybody's faces are up on the screen, it's pretty funny to see somebody talking away and you see their mouth moving and they're going, but there's nothing coming out sound. And then you have to hold up, hey, you're muted. Oh, I didn't know I was muted. And it's one of those things where, after the 85th video meeting, when it happens over and over and over again, it starts to not be quite as funny as it was the first couple times. So just be aware, good common etiquette, mute your mic when you're not speaking, but remember to unmute it when you are. Again, nice little quick shortcut, Control-M, mute on, Control-M, mute off. You don't even have to reach for your mouse and try to find that mute button. This is a big one. Posting in the wrong channel or chat. It's, this is one where, again, quickly just let everybody know you can delete something right away after you put it in there if you happen to put something in the wrong chat or channel. But if somebody saw it, not much you can do about it at that point. So it's like anything else on the internet. If somebody grabs a screenshot or if somebody does something, it's out there. If you post a tweet on Twitter and you delete it right away, if somebody grabs a screenshot, it doesn't matter that you deleted it. This could be something that's funny, or it could be something that could be very career limiting. This is an example of one where there's a technical overview meeting and this person accidentally meant to type into a private chat with a friend. Glad that it's over. I didn't get a thing, and accidentally put it in the main platform where everybody, including the presenter, could see. There's also typing in the wrong channels. If there's a leadership group in your organization and they have a channel for leadership and somebody accidentally types something that was not meant for the rest of the office to see into the general channel, well, everybody in the office is going to see that message. So you just, again, need to be cognizant and aware of where you're typing your messages. And it can be sometimes difficult. You have multiple individual chats and channels going on and you're busy working. It's no different than people have that fear of texting the message to the wrong person. So no different than you would when you're going to verify who's at the top of your screen on your text, your iMessage or whatever it might be. Same thing. Always just verify and have a look. What channel am I in? or what chat am I in before you hit enter on that message. Just a little quick advice, because anybody that's done this knows the kind of the, especially if it's something bigger, but just how kind of mortifying it is. And you're like, you go in, you delete it as quick as possible. You're like, I hope nobody saw that. Again, sometimes it can be pretty funny, but sometimes it could be something that could be detrimental to your career in that sense. I'm going to talk a little bit now, kind of as we get into just a little bit more about what are some of the things that are also offered within Teams and the integration in that sense to try to make it better. So Planner is a tool that Microsoft has. It's their version of kind of your project planner. It's a really good tool. It's recently been fully integrated into Teams. So you can actually, and I only found this out just recently, just last week, you don't have to keep going back and forth to Planner. Planner is not a desktop app. Like you can have Word and Excel and PowerPoint, etc., all as desktop apps. Planner isn't a desktop app. It's only available through the web login. Which always made it frustrating for me because I'd be doing stuff in Teams, then I'd have to go and log into the web browser rather than using the apps and go to Planner. Well, Planner now fully integrates in with Teams, and you can add it in as a task or in your tab bar, and then you can run Planner through Teams. You don't have to go externally out. And reality is you can do that with anything. You can integrate your email with Outlook through your Teams. You can integrate Excel and Exchange, so you can almost, they want to get to the point where you can almost operate fully functionally within the Teams encapsulation bubble for all your work stuff, where you don't need to have those external apps in that sense. So Planner is a great one. One of the things, Planner is actually going to be changing its branding and usage next month. There's another tool within the Microsoft suite that's called To Do. It used to be Wunderlist. Microsoft bought Wunderlist about a year and a bit ago and renamed it To Do. It's my absolute favorite Microsoft tool as far as my to-do list. It integrates in with my email, so I click one button on my email, it flags it, automatically puts it on my to-do list. I've introduced it to a bunch of people at our solūt office, and they're all like, think it's just awesome, the best tool ever. It's going to be integrating now with Planner as well, and it's going to be called Microsoft Tasks. Probably sometime in the next month or two, you'll see that all of a sudden show up within your Teams, or there'll be some notifications. And it's going to be pretty neat because the functionality To Do is great, and the functionality of Planner is great. Being able to have them integrated into one tool, it's really going to make it easy for people to track what they're doing, what their coworkers are doing within Teams, and as far as group tasks and stuff. Again, integration and collaboration is kind of the whole functionality of this. So as these tools work better together, or in this case, they merge Planner and To Do into Tasks. When it comes out, trust me, check it out. I think you'll be absolutely blown away by what you can do with it and how much more organized it'll make your life. But for now, check out the Microsoft To Do app. It's a free app, download through the Microsoft Store. Integrates with all through Office 365. To Do is awesome little tool. T-Bot. So it's one of those things where T-Bot is kind of like your Microsoft Teams trainer live, but it's not just an AI system. It's heavily based on that, but it's also collaboration information from power users and people that are Teams experts, Microsoft employees, and just general users, all putting on this information to allow you to kind of find stuff. So going through T-Bot myself, it was just like, oh, I didn't know that. Oh, I didn't know that. Wow, that's interesting. I didn't know that. Really, really great, kind of what I would say the next evolution or the next step in just your general help feature. If everybody remembers back in the day, Microsoft had the little paperclip icon, and you put in a search, and it would return search features that were nothing even relevant to what you were trying to find. And, it just made searching difficult. Searching has and help features have really evolved. And now T-Bot it's pretty bang on with all the searches that you want. And it brings back just a ton of information, and it's verified, and it's pretty cool. So, as you're playing with Teams and as Teams is evolving and you want to learn more about Teams, looking through and using T-Bot is a really nice little feature that most people don't know about. Connectors. So again, one of the biggest things for Microsoft is making sure that they don't operate on an island of their own, and that this is a big cultural shift for Microsoft. They used to be very much like, we are Microsoft and our tools are our tools. Now they've really made a push to be able to integrate. Integration is a word you've heard me use a lot today. So being able to integrate in Twitter and Trello and MailChimp and all these different things, and to set them up as connectors, so that information is coming in. So if you have a channel within your organization that uses Trello to manage some stuff, or in essence, you can actually set up the channel within with those add-on connectors, and all the information you need will just get pulled right into Teams. It's a really neat little feature. Again, most organizations may not need this. It might be one or two teams in an organization that wants it, but if it's something that you need, it just makes it so nice to be able to pull all that information into one spot within Teams rather than having to go all the time to externals and search and those things. It's a neat little feature. If anybody wants more information on connectors, I'm going to talk a little bit at the end about Microsoft training. They'll definitely be able to kind of take you through how to set those up and use them. But again, you can use T-Bot. It's fairly simple. This is a fun one. You know, it's we spend so much time on Teams and messaging. You want to be able to make it a little bit fun and be able to express yourself and have a little personality. So that they have opened up emojis and GIFs and stickers and memes, and just to be able to personalize things and be cognizant of what channel or thread you're in. If you're, you know, you have a senior leadership group messaging or something like that, you don't want to be throwing in some, you know, emojis all the time, etc. But if, you know, if it's a general, group message within the organization on, social committee or things like that, feel free to use these depending on your company policy. But it's just nice to be able to have a little bit more of a way to express yourself and have a little bit more fun with these tools, rather than just being so very dry and business orientated. So yeah, like I said, Microsoft Teams training. This is really neat. I had a phone call with Trevor Love from the Microsoft store last week, and I was talking to our Microsoft rep Mitchell, who was on a few weeks back with Jason when we talked about the shift from O365, like Office 365 to Microsoft 365. And one of the things that they have available for us, for all of our clients with solūt, is free Microsoft Teams training, basically run through a webinar series that's can be set up at any time that you want. 5 to 100 users. They say, groups of about 40, 50 work best if you're a larger organization, but they can schedule them out, and they can do specific training on deep dives of areas. If you want to do a deep dive on channels and how to grow the channels in the organization, or if you want general overview on how to better use video messaging, they kind of have generalized areas and then very deep dive areas that they can train. And again, the biggest thing being that it's free. It's all done through the Teams video platform, and they will make it custom specific for your organization. So it's not a situation where they're doing a webinar and whoever wants to join can join and it's training on Teams. It will be set up and coordinated and organized for your company. If there's things specifically you want to talk about or you want to learn about in advance, we'll find that out. We'll communicate all that information to Microsoft, and they'll customize and present the training on that. There's some multiple levels that you can kind of work through. They don't want to throw all of it at you at once because it can be quite overwhelming, but you can kind of set it up to do one session, every couple months on their different tiers of training. But it's a really nice feature that Microsoft's running. They used to offer it through their stores, or even having somebody come out to your office for our clients. But with everything kind of the way it is right now, they've made this shift to online training. And again, it's free for any of the solūt clients because of our high-level vendor agreement and partnership that we have with Microsoft. So if you're using Teams in your office and it's something that is just, it's kind of there and you're using it for basic chat and you're using it for the video conferencing, but you're not utilizing the deeper features, this would be a great thing to set up and to run, and to have Microsoft themselves do the training for you. And again, the biggest thing being that it's free and it's on your schedule and it's kind of how you want to do it. So it's not Microsoft, again, saying at 11 o'clock next Thursday, there's a Teams training and you and 25 other companies are going to be on there. This is very specific to you, and it's free. So yeah, I just want to kind of thank you for your time. I could go really deep into Teams and the rabbit hole. I just wanted to talk about some of the little things that are maybe different or you didn't know about if you're just using it for basic functionality. I hope you're able to get some information from this. Like I said, I put the link to our YouTube video in the chat feature, and I'll throw a couple other links in there right after. If you are interested in having Microsoft do some training for you, please reach out to your CX rep, either Alpesh or Chris or myself, and we can definitely make sure we can coordinate and arrange that for you. In that sense, if you're not using Teams right now, or you don't have the licensing set up, or you have the licensing through ORM 365, but you're just not using the functionality of it, don't hesitate to give one of us a call, and we can organize a call or meeting to discuss how Teams can benefit your organization and how to implement it. A lot of people, they get it. They get the O or the M365 suite, and they get their email and they know Teams is there. And, it's kind of like, well, we got Office 365 or we have M365, what now? And are we and because Teams comes free as part of that package, they're almost afraid not knowing how to use it. If you're in that situation, give us a call. We can help you get it set up. In that sense. So really appreciate everybody's time. Next week, we're going to do a little bit of a different format just to try to mix things up a little bit, because we've been doing these for going on 3 months now. And we're going to have a panel discussion next week. We're going to have probably 3 or 4 different people on and looking at how IT in the workforce is going to look going forward. So not just the remote things that's kind of been talked to death in the last little while, but just where are we going to be as far as how companies are operating and how technology is going to affect them, and in that sense, and just it's going to be a general discussion, a little bit of you'll have some ability for some more Q&A and a little bit more interaction than we normally have, where it's me presenting a slide deck or one of our other Solūt teammates presenting a slide deck. This one's going to be a panel discussion. We're going to have some Q&A at the end. We're going to try to liven this up a little bit and let everybody know out there, whether you're a client of Solūt or just a company in general, where we're seeing, and not just us, we're bringing in some people from outside of Solūt to kind of where we see technology going for the rest of 2020 and through 2021, and how it's going to be impacted in the workforce. So again, thank everybody for your time. If you do have any questions, or if you want to have any further discussions, either reach out to myself, the CX member, or put it in the chat thread. We'll leave the chat thread open for a little while, and we can get back to you. If you want to have a copy of this slide deck or anything specifically, put it in the chat feature, and we'll make sure we get that information to you. Hope everybody had a wonderful day. Thank you so much for your time.